I stood at the door, smoothing down the blouse I'd picked out 2 weeks ago. Soft gray, simple but elegant. The gift sat in my hands, neatly wrapped in floral paper with a silk ribbon tied just right. I'd spent the morning baking lemon-rye cookies, tying a note that said, "For the new chapter." I was about to call Taryn when the phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I smiled. "Hi, sweetie," I said. Her voice was casual, like she was half distracted. "Oh, hey, Mom. Just wanted to say we had the party yesterday. Gavin's mom handled everything." I didn't respond right away. Not, "We missed you," not, "It was last minute," not even a sorry, just, "We had it yesterday." My hand went cold around the gift box. "Oh," I finally said. "I see." She really pulled it together, decorations, catering, all of it. It was really beautiful. I'm sure it was. "Well, gotta run. Love you." She hung up before I could say anything else. I stared at the phone for a long time, then at the wrapped box in my hands. I set it on the hallway bench and walked to the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee that had gone cold. That night, I opened my laptop and clicked on her profile. The first photo was her and Gavin raising glasses, fairy lights above them, candles glowing between wine bottles. The caption read, "Couldn't have asked for a more perfect night. Thank you to my second family for making it so magical." I read the comments. "Gavin's mom, you two are the perfect pair. So proud." Taryn replied, "I'm so lucky to have you as my mom now." I didn't feel angry. Not yet, just hollow. I closed the laptop and sat there in silence, the ribbon from the gift still curled in my lap. I didn't cry, not then. Instead, I remembered the voice that used to call me Mama when she scraped her knee and wondered when it had become this easy to forget me. People think I'm fragile because I'm quiet. They forget I used to negotiate six-figure accounts before breakfast. I wasn't just Taryn's mother. I was her planner, her safety net, her emergency contact, her fallback for everything. I didn't break easily, but that doesn't mean I never cracked. After Emery died, I took on 2 shifts and a side contract. Pancreatic cancer doesn't ask if your daughter still needs braces. It doesn't wait until the college fund is full. I kept going for her. When Taryn turned 16, I bought her a used Civic, paid in cash. She cried in the driveway, hugging me so tight I thought my ribs would bruise. When she moved into the dorms, I drove her, made her bed, and stocked her fridge while she caught up with her roommate. Her degree came 4 years later, along with a business idea that needed a loan. Banks weren't convinced. I was. I co-signed, and when the first quarter tanked, I quietly covered payroll. She never knew how close she came to shutting down. I didn't want praise, but I did think I'd earned a seat at her table. I stared at the photo on her profile again, her hands entwined with Gavin's, glowing string lights overhead, captioned like a farewell letter I hadn't been given. Second family. I shut the screen. My phone buzzed. An automatic notification. Her credit card bill was due. I'd set up reminders to protect her from late fees. My thumb hovered over the app. Then I logged out. I walked to the hallway, picked up the unopened gift box, and placed it gently in the storage trunk under the stairs. 3 jobs, 2 decades of giving, 1 forgotten mother. And now, for the first time in a very long time, I let the silence stretch. Because sometimes silence is the only language they bother to hear. I wasn't supposed to be at the baby shower. I found out by accident. Taryn had mentioned it in passing during a rushed phone call. "Gavin's sister's having her shower next weekend." "Oh, wait, it's just mostly his side." "Are we going?" I asked gently. She hesitated. "Well, Gavin's mom is kind of handling the guest list, so it's mostly their circle. But if you really want to come..." That have sat heavy in my chest. I showed up with a quiet gift. Soft towels and a basket of handmade lotion. I stood on the porch for a moment before ringing the bell, wondering if they'd act surprised to see me. They didn't, but no one really greeted me either. Gavin's mother took one look and smiled wide, her voice full of polite cheer. "Oh, you must be Taryn's mom. We all know who the real boss is, though, don't we?" She winked toward herself, and everyone around her laughed. I smiled, hands folded in front of me, like a guest at someone else's holiday. Midway through the event, they handed out little scented gift bags, candles and bath salts wrapped in tulle. Gavin's mom lifted one and said, "For the real moms who do the hard work." She walked straight past me and placed it into the lap of her sister. Taryn stood beside her and nodded, saying nothing. Not once did she glance toward me. Not even when I caught her eye. Later, just before I left, she pulled me aside near the kitchen. "Thanks for coming, Mom. I know it was kind of their thing." Their thing. That's what it always became. Their family, their events, their circle, and me on the outer edge, politely allowed in. I drove home in silence, the favor bag unopened on the passenger seat. When I walked into the kitchen, I set it next to the gifts still waiting in the hallway. Some things, I was starting to realize, were never meant to be unwrapped. It didn't happen all at once. The shift came gradually, like the way leaves change before a storm, almost beautiful if you're not paying attention. Taryn used to ask, "Mom, would it be okay if... do you think you might be able to help?" There was gratitude tucked into every sentence, even when it was rushed. But somewhere between her first apartment and the third time she changed jobs, the softness in her voice sharpened. The words grew shorter, sharper, entitled. "You'll cover this, right? I just assumed you had it." Assumed. That was the word that did the most damage. I was stirring my coffee when the call came in. She didn't even say hello. "The deposit's due today," she said, like it was a meeting reminder. "Gavin's parents already paid their share, so you can just send the rest, right?" I looked into the mug. The coffee had gone cold again. "No, please, no thank you," just a command masked as expectation. I said nothing at first. I let the silence stretch between us like a warning rope she didn't know she was tripping over. "Mom," she prompted, impatience already lacing her tone. "It's kind of time-sensitive." I almost laughed. Time-sensitive, as if love were a transaction and I was the bank on speed dial. "I'll talk to Robert," I finally said. My voice was even, but I could feel the heat in my chest, the kind that doesn't come from caffeine. When I told Robert, my husband's older brother, he didn't blink, just opened his laptop and started pulling up accounts. We had trained her for this. That was the worst part. We had made help so easy, so seamless, she no longer recognized it as generosity. To her, it was just structure, part of the machine. Push button, receive funds. Later that night, I made another quiet note in the folder I'd started. Then I closed my laptop and stood in the dark kitchen, wondering when love had been reduced to autopay. The folder started as a single envelope, one printed transfer from my account to hers labeled Emergency Tuition Gap. I remember writing it out in Sharpie, thinking I'd track it just for clarity. But clarity became a need, and the envelope turned into a folder. Inside were screenshots of text messages, short ones. "Rent's tight again. Can you just cover this until Friday? It's only temporary." There were transfer receipts, thousands over the years, grocery money, business loan top-offs, late fees, credit card payments, some labeled, most not. I never showed it to anyone. Not until I sat across from Elena one rainy afternoon. She'd been a sharp attorney once, now mostly tended to her garden and read crime novels on her porch. She flipped through the folder slowly, page by page, then looked at me with something between sadness and disbelief. "You didn't raise a daughter," she said softly. "You trained a client." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. I pulled up the mortgage account and removed myself as cosigner. My hands didn't shake. Then I opened another document, the will I hadn't touched in 4 years. The line with Taryn's name stared back at me. I didn't delete it, but I moved it down, adjusted a few terms, added one condition. Respect isn't owed, but it's not optional either. When the edits were done, I closed the folder. Physically, digitally, emotionally. Not out of anger, out of relief. I had always been her safety net, her cushion, her backup plan. But I was starting to realize, if someone never learns to stand, maybe it's because you never stopped catching them. And I wasn't going to catch her the next time. Not when the fall might be the only thing that finally made her look up. The call came while I was folding laundry, half watching the steam from my coffee curl into the morning light. My phone lit up with Taryn's name. I almost didn't answer, but something in me wanted to hear. It needed to hear what came next. "Mom," she said, her voice tight, breathless, "my card just got declined." "I'm at the register. Did you forget to pay it?" I brought the cup to my lips and took a long, slow sip. "No," I said calmly. "I remembered everything." "What?" she said, sharper now. "What are you talking about?" "I mean, I didn't forget," I said. "I made a decision." "You always help me," she said. I could hear the disbelief turning into something uglier. Not this time. I could picture her standing there, designer bag in hand, trying to reconcile the moment. Not just the embarrassment, but the shift in control, the realization that the faucet had stopped flowing. "You don't understand," she said quickly. "Gavin's parents are here. This is humiliating." I let the pause stretch long enough for her to feel it. "You've made a lot of choices, Taryn," I said finally. "And so have I." She let out a sharp breath, the kind that used to come before a tantrum when she was 5. "This isn't fair," she snapped. "You could have at least warned me." "No," I said again. "I've spent years not warning you, years smoothing things over so you didn't feel the consequences." I heard her inhale, then go silent. Maybe she was waiting for me to take it back, to soften like I always had. But I didn't. "You always said you had it handled," I said. "Now you do." I ended the call before she could reply. My hands were steady. My heart was quiet. I folded the last towel and placed it in the drawer. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was earned. They showed up the next afternoon. No warning, just a knock on the door and Gavin's SUV in my driveway. Taryn stood a few feet back while Gavin did the talking. His shirt was tucked in, voice calm, measured, like a press release. "We're not here to fight," he said, "but this is creating a lot of stress for Taryn. Her mental health is suffering, and we just want to find a middle ground." Taryn nodded once, arms crossed, lips tight. I leaned against the doorway and said nothing for a long moment. I just looked at her. My daughter. The girl I raised through scraped knees and final exams. The girl who now looked at me like I was a PR problem to clean up. "You're hurting her," Gavin added, a little firmer this time. "Emotionally. And honestly, this whole thing, it feels a little extreme." I turned to Taryn. "Let me ask you something." She didn't blink. "I paid for your college. I paid your rent when you were in between jobs. I kept your business afloat when no one else would. And when it came time for one of the biggest nights of your life, you forgot us." Taryn rolled her eyes. "You're exaggerating." There it was, the word that sliced deeper than silence ever could. I straightened. "Get out." "What?" She blinked, the first crack in her composure. "You came here not to apologize. You came to reframe, to make me the problem." She opened her mouth again, but I raised my hand. "No, come back when you're ready to face what you've done. Not before." Gavin tugged her gently by the arm. "Let's go." At the door, she turned back. "If you don't change this, you won't be at the wedding." I met her eyes. We already weren't. Her mouth opened, maybe to fire back. But then she saw my face. Not angry, just done. And for the first time in years, I watched her leave without chasing after her. Robert came by the next morning with a bag of oranges and that same quiet look he always had when something serious needed doing. He didn't ask what happened. I didn't explain. We just sat at the table, opened our laptops, and started making changes. No tension, no dramatics, just the quiet work of undoing things. First, the will. I scrolled to the section where Taryn's name appeared. Beneficiary, executor, default decision maker. It had all been done years ago, back when I still believed the future was something we could build together. Now I updated it, adjusted percentages, added protective clauses, made sure nothing was left vague enough to be twisted. Next, the power of attorney. Robert helped me fill out the forms. We assigned the responsibility to a longtime friend, someone who would never view my bank account as an extension of their own. Then came the locks. The summer house, the one Taryn used to vacation in with Gavin without ever asking, still had the old code. I changed it, wrote it down, filed it away. After that, the joint bank access removed. Access cards canceled. Automatic transfers halted. It took less than 10 minutes. We didn't speak much through it all, just moved through the checklist. I realized how strangely peaceful it felt. The stillness of not arguing. No raised voices, no guilt, no explanations, just decisions, boundaries in motion. When it was done, Robert poured us both coffee. He handed me my cup like it was a quiet toast. "To what?" I asked. He looked at me. "To remembering who you are." I didn't cry, I didn't smile, but I felt something steady return to my chest. We sat on the porch as the sun slipped down past the trees. The phone buzzed once in my pocket. I didn't check it. I didn't need to, because we had drawn the line. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like crossing it back. It came on a Tuesday, an ivory envelope tucked between the electric bill and a charity flyer. The return address caught my eye first. The venue, the one Taryn had gushed about over the phone 6 months earlier, when I'd still been footing deposits without question. I opened it slowly. Heavy cardstock, pale gold lettering. "With love and respect, we invite you to witness the union of Taryn Whitman and Gavin Rodes. Respect." I stared at the word until it blurred, not from tears, just from disbelief. There had been no phone call, no apology, no acknowledgement of everything said or unsaid on my doorstep. Just a formal piece of paper trying to smooth over months, maybe years, of being quietly erased. I stood, walked to the hallway cabinet, and opened the bottom drawer. The folder was there, thicker now. I slid the invitation inside without a sound. That weekend, the town felt quieter. Maybe it was me. Neighbors knew, of course. Small towns always do, but no one asked questions. Marjorie from down the road stopped by with a basket of pears. We sat on the porch with coffee and watched the fire pit flicker down into glowing embers. She didn't mention the wedding. She just passed me a blanket and said, "Cooler than they said it would be." We sat there a long time, not talking much, and yet it felt more honest than any speech I might have heard at that head table. No photographers, no forced smiles, no performances, just the comfort of someone sitting beside you who expects nothing but your company. The next morning I checked my phone once. No messages from Taryn, no missed calls. But there were photos online. Perfect lighting, toasts midair, Gavin's mother fixing Taryn's veil with that too familiar intimacy. I closed the app. Then I stepped outside to water the hydrangeas I'd planted last spring, their roots steady now in the soil I chose. Because some things bloom better far from the ceremony. The text came just after noon. "Do you even love me anymore?" No greeting, no context, just that. I stared at the screen for a long while, thumb hovering over the keyboard, heart steady. No anger, no sadness, just a quiet knowing that some questions come too late. Not because the answer changed, but because the person asking never bothered to hear it when it mattered. I set the phone face down on the table and walked into the study. In the corner next to the window sat a small ceramic pot with chipped edges. Inside it, the struggling vine Taryn had given me one Mother's Day long ago, back when gifts were messy, homemade, and full of effort. It wasn't dead, not quite. A few leaves clung on, dry at the edges, but green enough to keep hoping. I fetched the watering can, drizzled just enough to soften the roots, then tilted the pot toward the light. I hadn't thrown it out, even when it started to wither. Something in me still believed it could come back if it chose to. As I turned to leave, I paused in the doorway. "I do love her," I said aloud to no one, but then I added softer, truer, "I finally love me too." That was the difference. All these years I'd poured from a well I didn't know was drying up, kept giving and giving because that's what mothers are taught to do. That love means staying, fixing, sacrificing, no matter the cost. But somewhere in the quiet between the canceled transfers and the unopened envelope, I'd remembered that I existed too. I picked up my book from the side table and settled into the armchair, letting the afternoon light stretch across the floor. The phone buzzed again. I didn't check it. Instead, I turned the page, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for them and for you, is to stop answering and start healing. The days after the wedding passed like slow water. I woke early, made tea instead of coffee, took long walks past the post office and down to the pier where fishermen hummed under their breath. Sometimes I thought of Taryn, not the woman in the white dress, but the little girl who once built blanket forts in our living room and fell asleep mid-story, her hand resting on mine. I thought of her laugh, the way she'd once run barefoot through the sprinklers, her hair plastered to her cheeks, shouting, "Come on, Mom, you're missing it!" And in a way, I had been. I'd missed how quickly the years would turn, how one day you're the center of their world, and the next, you're a footnote in their caption. But I didn't feel bitter anymore, just awake. I started volunteering at the local library, helping with the weekend reading program. Kids with untied shoes and sticky fingers would tug at my sleeve and ask, "Can you read one more?" And I always said yes, because there was still a part of me that wanted to give, but now I knew how to give without disappearing. One afternoon, a little girl with curly hair handed me a drawing, a stick figure woman watering flowers beside a sun. "That's you," she said proudly. "You help things grow." I smiled. "Thank you." That night, I pinned it to my refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a teapot. I thought about how love, in its truest form, doesn't always look like sacrifice. Sometimes it looks like letting things find their own soil. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Not a text, not an email. A real letter, handwritten in blue ink. "Mom," it began, "I don't really know where to start. Gavin thinks I shouldn't write, but I can't stop thinking about everything that happened. About the shower, the call, the wedding. I know I hurt you, maybe more than I understand. I told myself I was just busy, that you were strong, that you didn't need me to say things out loud. But that was a lie I told, because it was easier than facing how much I took you for granted. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I finally see it, all of it. You didn't stop loving me when you said no. You just stopped letting me treat your love like a service I could subscribe to. I'm sorry it took losing that to realize what it really was." The ink had smudged slightly in one corner, like she'd rested her wrist too long while thinking. "I don't know if you'll want to hear from me again, but I'm here, and I'm trying. Love, Taryn." I folded the letter carefully and set it beside the potted vine. Then I reached for the watering can again. I smiled, not because everything was fixed, but because something had finally begun. Outside, the evening light caught on the glass, turning it gold. The air smelled like rain, and somewhere far away, I hoped my daughter was watching the same sky and feeling, maybe for the first time, what it meant to stand on her own.